Lights, camera, action.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the newest horror film, Leviticus. So Leviticus essentially follows these two boys who have to face off against a violent entity that takes the form of what they desire the most, which in this case is each other. So today we're back talking about another horror movie, and this is one that I was looking forward to. Australian horror has been really good as of late. I've really enjoyed pretty much that they've done. I love Talk to Me. I've loved Bring Her Back. I think both those were very good. Even though, how bleak they were, I still really enjoyed them. So starting off with the things I liked about this movie is, first of all, I really like the setting of this movie. I like the small town set in, I think it was filmed in 3 different places in Australia, if I remember correctly. But I like how each town, it has that small town feel to it, to where it's like when stuff starts going on, it almost creates this atmosphere of its own, to where it's almost like this bottleneck type movie where, even though, yes, you're in a small town and obviously you have places to go, but it creates that kind of like suffocating feel to where there's just no escape. Like everything that you're dealing with and going through, it's like you just can never get away from it. It's something is always there behind you around every corner. And I liked how the overall feel of this movie, because of its setting, really captured that. I also really like the vibes of this movie. I think there's something really just haunting about it. I think haunting is really the best word for it. It's just like there's always something that feels off about the movie. Like, you never feel 100% comfortable or 100% that you're okay throughout this entire movie. There's always something lurking around the corner to where you don't know what is going to happen, but it captures that so well, and it's just so eerie at times. And I think that small town setting that I just mentioned also really helps that. I also think that the 2 leads that are in this movie, Joe Bird and Stacey Clausen, I think both of those guys are incredible. I think they have a fantastic chemistry together. I really bought into everything that they were going through on screen. Like, I felt every emotion they were going through, and you could just feel all of it. And they, it captured one of the points where they had to be scared and terrified. These points where it's like, they felt so terrified because they, not only of this entity that is following them, but this this feeling that they had inside that they couldn't be honest with anybody about how they felt. And I think they really captured that, because as an audience member, all of that really came through. And both of their performances, like I said, is just fantastic. I think their chemistry together is great. Like, you really bought in, and you could see the 2 of them being a couple, being together. And the 2 of them with that performance just carry this movie all the way through it, and they just both do a phenomenal job. And I really like the concept of this movie as well. I think the whole idea of this person that can, follow you, but, you're the only one that can see it. And it really has that flavor of It Follows to it, which I completely understand people comparing it to that movie. But with this one, it's about the entity that, you see it, what you desire the most. And I think that's a really kind of a cool thing to kind of tack on there to make it stand out to be a little bit differently than It Follows, where It Follows could kind of be this random thing. It could be whatever random person. And in this one, it's like the person that you care for, that you want the most. And so I think that creates a little bit more of that unease to it. I'm not saying that seeing random people that nobody else can see is creepy, because that totally works. But I think it creates that sense in this movie of, is that person that you're seeing, is that the real one of them, or is that the entity? So it creates that kind of feel throughout the movie to where you don't know what's real. And as an audience member, you were kind of in the same boat as our characters, to where you're like, you start to question yourself. You're like, well, is that the real person, or is that the entity? And it does such a great job of playing those mind games with you, to where as the movie goes on, you as the audience member don't know who to trust. You don't know really if, how to feel about certain situations. You don't know if I should trust this person. And it really kind of goes for every character. I think as the movie goes along, even some of the adult characters, you're like, I don't trust this person at all because of what they are doing. And I think that that's a great way of having a movie like this, because it just gives you that feeling of kind of that dread throughout, and something I really appreciated about the movie. And to be honest, I really enjoy the overall theme and message of this movie. About, really at the core of it, I think you should be able to love who you want to love, and whether that makes people uncomfortable or not, it's like, who cares? It's your life. There's a great line, there's a recurring line in the movie that really summarizes essentially the whole theme of the movie, which is they want us to be scared of each other. And I think that's such a great through line to have through this entire movie because it's very true. It's like people often are scared of stuff that they don't understand. And I just love that this whole movie kind of tackles that whole thing of you should be able to love who you want to love unapologetically. If that's how you feel about somebody, then by all means feel about them. I think that's where really the true horror of this movie comes into it, is the fact that they are stuck with these feelings of feeling guilty because of how they feel, and nobody should ever feel that way. And I think it does a really great job of having that come out as the so-called horror or the so-called entity of this movie and what it really is. And that's something I really appreciated about this movie. That's one thing I love about horror movies. They tend to tackle a lot of stuff and they put things into representation in ways that, not a lot of other movies will tackle or kind of talk about in a certain way. And that's one big thing of why I love horror so much, is because it kind of takes that road and goes there. And this movie does a really great job with that story and its overall themes. And it's something just, at the end of the day, I really appreciated about it. And with all that being said, one of the other things I really enjoyed about this movie is the fact that you feel so hopeless for these guys, and as the movie goes on, because everybody in this town is really starts to slowly kind of turn against them, really not believe anything that they have to say. They only see them for, that particular issue, and that's the problem, when in reality this thing is after them. And even to the point to where their own parents don't even believe them. They become like isolated. They have to take on this for themselves. And I thought that was a really cool thing because it adds so much more depth to the character, because you feel so much for them, because now they feel like you are truly alone. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, that small town setting, how you have that kind of bottleneck feel where, you're in this small town, which kind of creates like a thing of its own, but with being in the small town and having everybody in that town kind of turn against you. So really all you have left is like each other. And there's even parts in the movie to where they can't be around each other because of the thing with this entity. I think all that was really well done because it makes you feel so isolated and alone. And I think it captures that so well to where you just feel so hopeless for these guys, because you just want somebody to be able to help them or try to reach out to help them. And it does a great job of kind of feeling with that, like these other Australian movies like Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, where it had that real bleak feel to it that I really enjoyed. And I just think that was a really unique thing to have about this movie. And the last positive that I want to give about this movie is that I really like how this movie, like I mentioned earlier about the themes and whatnot of the movie, is I really like how the through line of this entire movie is about love. I think even though how bleak and dark this movie can be at times, there's still that hint of love throughout the entire movie. I don't think that theme ever really goes away, and it kind of carries that all through the movie. And even though with all that, like I said, how dark and brutal it can get, there are moments where it does feel like there is some sweetness to it, to where it has those moments of levity to where you're like, okay, I think there is hope for these guys. And that's really something I liked. I loved how the movie never lost its theme of love all the way throughout it, even though all the dark, horrific stuff that happens. I really appreciated that. Now, moving on to some of my mixed feelings about this movie, and one of the biggest ones is that I did not feel any tension throughout this movie. There is one scene in particular that I felt a little bit of tension, and that was towards the climax of the movie. And that was it. Like, I didn't feel any build up towards anything that truly got to me, that truly really made me put me on the edge of my seat. And that was so disappointing to me, because I really thought it was going to be one of those movies where it was really kept, the tension ratcheting and really keep you on the edge of your seat. And it's not really that movie at all. And with that being said, it's the same way with the scares. I really didn't find the movie scary whatsoever. Like, for me personally, I know that could be, that's just a me thing. This could be a movie that somebody else goes sees and finds it absolutely terrifying, and that's okay. But for me personally, I did not find any of the scenes truly scary. Like, I think there is some horrific stuff that happens in this movie. By all means, yes, there is some violent stuff that happens in the movie, some pretty grotesque stuff that happens at time in the movie, but it never the whole movie. Like, it's never this, fully, like, this movie does not rely on jump scares at all, which thankfully I appreciated whatsoever. But we do get one really good jump scare, and I will admit it did get me. But for the movie overall, I never felt scared or tense any throughout the entire movie, and that was just a big letdown for me. Like I mentioned in my positives, to me, the horror and the scares and all that stuff is more of the feelings that these kids have and then what they have to hide and whatnot. And I feel like that is more of the horror and the scares more than the actual entity that is chasing them, if you will. And this could absolutely be one of those stories that is 100% going for that. It could be one of those things that the director fully intended. And even though that I found the scares and the tension very kind of lacking in that department, other people could go see this and be absolutely terrified and feel tense the entire movie. And I totally get that. So, like I said, it could just be all what the director intended to be. I think that the times that I felt the little bit of tension that I did for the most part was really the scenes where these two guys had to really kind of sneak around and kind of stay hidden away from everybody because you didn't know what was going to happen from that. You didn't know if they were going to get caught and what punishment was going to come from that, or if it was this entity and how the entity was going to react to those situations. All that was really well done in the tension department. That's where I felt that little bit of tension, but I wish that kind of stretched over for the majority of the movie, and for me, it didn't. The other thing that I'm going to throw into the mixed category here is something that I really enjoy and appreciate, but I know it can piss a lot of people off, and some people just aren't into it, is really there's a lot of stuff in this movie that is left up to your imagination. A lot of it is left ambiguous and kind of just left for you to come up with. Like the whole thing with this entity, you never really know what it is or where it really comes from or any origin behind it. And the so-called priest that really does these, spells or whatever on these kids or whatever, you never really know anything about that guy or where he came from or where he learned any of this or what actually any of this is. All that is really left up to your imagination. And it kind of leaves you with this ending, too, that I actually really enjoyed the ending because it was kind of a bittersweet ending, if you will. And it just kind of left me with that feeling that I really enjoyed. But I know for a lot of people, stuff like that just doesn't work because they like to have stuff kind of tied up in a nice little bow or have a story like ending that is, concrete. And this movie, it's not that at all. Like I said, there's so much in this movie that is left up to your interpretation. While it is in my mixed part, it's because, like I said, it's something that worked for me, but I know can easily just turn a lot of people off. So overall, I did enjoy this movie. I think it is a very well done movie. Like I said, I like everything that it was going for. I like the whole setting and the performances, and I love the overall theme of the message and the story. Like I said, the biggest part in the department that's lacking for me is the scares and the tension. I just wish we had a little bit more of that. But like I said, I could be on my own with that. Other people could go see this and really think it's super scary and super, intense and whatnot. But for me, I just did not get that. But I still enjoyed the movie overall. I think it's still a really well-done movie, and it is one that I'll happily add to my collection. So this is one that I would absolutely go check out at the theater. I think it is worth your time. It is a good time at the theater. I would just temper your expectations a little bit. Like I said, to me, this movie felt more of like a drama movie with some really horrific horror elements added into it. But it did have a lot to say about some stuff which I was appreciative of. So movies like this are great for conversation starters. So with all that, I would just temper your expectations, and maybe if you're going in expecting a ton of scares, I would kind of temper that back a little bit. But thank you, everybody. That is my review for Leviticus. If this is the review that you're finding me on, please come over to the channel and check out all my other 2026 reviews so far. If you have seen Leviticus, please let me know down below what you thought about it. And I'm curious, what is your favorite Australian movie that we've got, horror movie that we've gotten out of the last couple of years? I know there's like Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, and one I really enjoy is The Loved Ones. I think that one's really good. But what is your favorite? Let's talk about it down below. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you in the next one. Thank you so very, very much.